Welcome to Your Need to Know. I'm your host, Catherine Reed, and today we're going to be talking about volunteering with AARP. And joining me are two ambassadors of community volunteering, Mr. Suba Sati and Carol Downs. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Well, thank you for having us.
So I knew nothing about this. AARP is a brand that's extremely well known. It's discounts, it's insurance, it's advocacy work, it's a large national organization, but volunteering is something brand new, and it was not something that I was ever aware that somebody could volunteer with the organization. So, Carol, why don't you tell us a little bit about the programs and how people can volunteer?
I think one of the things to be aware of is how much AARP is in your community, and that's done through volunteers. You're not going to find volunteers out there selling insurance or being a lobbyist or anything like that. There are generally people that many of them have retired. They're looking for something meaningful to do in their lives. And AARP has been in the business for years of matching good people that have skills and have things to give back to their community. And so AARP is kind of the matching service for that. I used to work for AARP 1,000 years ago, and being a volunteer for them is kind of the other end of the spectrum. But I love the fact that we're so involved in our communities.
So Suba, how did you find out about this program? I know that you retired and you were looking for something, but how did you come across this? Because until you told me about it, I did not know.
Yeah, well, Carolyn, I was in the same boat as you. Somebody, I forgot who it was, when somebody said, hey, you can volunteer for AARP. And I actually said, well, I don't want to deal with insurance. And I don't want to volunteer sitting behind a desk and dealing with numbers. She goes, no, I think AARP is bigger than that. Why don't you? So I started researching it, and I sent out an email to the Richmond office. And long story short, our state advocacy director here, Amber Sultan, she hates it when we mention her name, but she's the wonderful reason why we all volunteer. I met with her, and it was the first time somebody had asked me from a volunteer organization, what do you want to do? What is your passion? And I'm like, really? You want to ask me what I want to do? And I told her I want to present things out there. And she goes, wow, this would be perfect for you. We'll send you to all our presentations, and you can pick and choose what you want to do.
So that's what you do, basically? You do presentations for AARP?
I do 3 different presentations. Of course, I'm proudly wearing my fraud shirt.
Okay.
And so I do fraud presentations around the community, which is huge. It's not just for people that are targeting seniors, the scammers. It's also all age groups. But it's mostly for retirees that I target as far as telling them what to watch out for so they don't get scammed. I do home fit, where you can basically stay at your home a little bit longer or as long as you want to, as long as you modify your house, and just started doing 5 pillars of brain health. So it gave me that opportunity, that platform to go out there and present this around the community, and I found that very rewarding.
Well, that's terrific. And Carol, you have a long history with working in many organizations that touch on these.
I do. When I went back to school to get my master's, I decided I was going to get it in aging, social work, because my theory was the older I got, the more interested in aging I would become.
There you go.
And it's worked out exactly that way. But knowing AARP from the perspective of working with the organization from another's organization standpoint, I used to be with the Shepherd Center in Oakton, Vienna, and we relied on AARP to give us some help with getting new volunteers, with, just some programs that we had. So there was that relationship that I already had with AARP. And then when I retired, or as I like to say, rewired.
Rewired, I like that much better than retired.
I thought AARP was one of the organizations I really wanted to look into as a volunteer. And the thing I love about it is you can start in any place as a volunteer in AARP. You can be at a table at an event and talk to people about the organization. And you can learn new skills. You can learn how to be a good presenter. And Suba does a lot of the presentations. I also do the home fit and as well as caregiving. So I do a workshop called Prepare to Care. And we do this at libraries and for different organizations. So there's a lot of good, I think, research that AARP has done into various situations like caregiving, like fraud, like senior health.
So they just determine that there's a program that needs to address a problem or an unmet need, and so does AARP then set up the program and then look for volunteers who want to plug into that program?
It can go both ways. It can come as a suggestion from a volunteer that, you know what, I think it'd be good if we had a program that addressed this need that I see in the community that AARP is not addressing now. And then AARP will do a lot of research on that, or it could come from the direction of AARP. And just as you said, they would create the program and then try to find the best volunteers to get that program out to the public.
So once you decided, Suba, that you were going to, interact with AARP, and you decided you were going to be a presenter, do you generate the gigs you get, or does AARP generate the gigs you get? How does that work?
Good question. Both. Sometimes I'll go to a community center and I'll say, hey, if anybody wants me to come to their groups, come and see me afterwards, because I've always got my card. We also have a wonderful lady, a volunteer, Nancy Crespo, who is in charge of the Speakers Bureau as far as formulating our schedule. She has been great at doing that. So she'll get an email saying, hey, such and such library wants to do 5 Pillars of Brain Health. Suba, are you available on this day and time?
Wow.
And so we'll work with our schedule, and then she develops a master schedule. And I just became in charge of the Speakers Bureau for AARP. I think I got volunteered in it. I was just saying a few ideas.
Did you miss a meeting?
Yeah,
or how did that work?
I was saying about a few ideas that I have, and they all looked at me going, Suba, it looks like, well, Amber's really good at that. She'll say, okay, well, Suba, it looks like you can lead that. So no, I'm really excited about doing that, about getting our speakers together and going out there and making these presentations, because I think it's so important to the community to hear about these good ideas. But along with AARP, you can get involved as much as, like Carol said, as much as you want to, or if you just want to table events. Carol and I are part of the Leadership Council. We've just found a new way to kind of structure what we do as volunteers. We're very busy here in Northern Virginia. So Carol and I are part of our Leadership Council. Carol is in charge of the volunteer orientation onboarding, and I'm a member for volunteer with her group for that. So it really kind of, when a new volunteer comes on board, we want to make sure they have all the skills they need and what they want to do for their passion, and then we onboard them, and we'll actually provide a mentor for them to say, hey, what do you want to do? Maybe you can hang around with me or you for a month and a half if they need it. And then if they want to do speaking engagements or tabling or dinner groups or movies for grown-ups, I mean, the list is endless on what they can do.
That's fantastic. And like I said, I just don't think a lot of people know about this. I'm a Rotarian, so Rotary meets every week, and we look for speakers every week, and there's a lot of service organizations still around, the Kiwanis clubs and the JCs and garden clubs and women's clubs that are always looking for speakers. So would that be engaging with AARP through specifically the Speakers Bureau? Would that be a way for service clubs to say, send us a speaker on this topic?
Absolutely. Especially, service clubs know their own constituents, for lack of a better word. And one of the things, like for instance, the caregiving, there are more and more people these days being impacted by caregiving issues.
That is so true.
So there are more organizations that want to hear more about the resources that there are for caregivers. And just from learning from other families who have been through the experience. And I think that's one of the values that AARP has. It has people that have been through certain situations, and so they're a help to someone who's just getting into a particular issue. AARP works very closely with the Alzheimer's Association. And it's, as I said in the beginning, AARP, I think, is really a very basic part of the community. I forget that they might sell insurance or whatever.
Most of us just get the stuff in the mail, right? All of us are getting the stuff in our mailbox, including me. At this point in my life, I'm getting the stuff in the mailbox.
Yeah. Well, one of the adages is, you've heard about the CIA, but for some reason, AARP will find you when you get to be 50.
Yeah, they
and
certainly
because
do.
when I turned 50, I said, wow, how did they know that I was around? And, then my wife got it, but they find you. But
They
it is
do.
amazing all the things they do, because at tabling events, they're like, oh, okay, yeah, you guys do insurance. And no, when I'm at a tabling event, I said, no, these are the things we do besides the insurance.
This is the missing piece of this.
Yeah.
And when you mention caregiving, there are so many millions of Americans involved in caregiving, not just for elderly parents, but for people who have cancer, people who are sick. In addition to, there are people taking care of young children. I mean, caregiving has become this huge thing in this country.
It really is, and actually one of the groups that I did a caregiving presentation to was a group of parents who had older children that had special needs.
Right.
And the children were kind of growing out of the ages where they were getting services.
Right, they do.
And
after
so
21.
that became a problem, and that group asked if I could come and speak to that issue on caregiving. And I think you never know where help is going to come from. And I think for those of us who have been around a while and have seen a lot of people being helped, we want to kind of share that. And the government can't do everything.
That is so true.
I mean, there isn't enough money to go around, and that's where I think volunteers really step up to the plate, because they will fill in what somebody can't afford employees, so volunteers will kick in.
And what you say about because I do a lot of work with the autism community, and that is a problem. As long as you have students in school, and a lot of them have learned skills, what we don't have is employment opportunities, so that they end up coming back home. And so I've interviewed Mason Life on this show, and they're teaching them life skills and giving them a certificate program and helping them with internships and placement. But AARP is not something that normally would leap to mind about.
Right.
How can a volunteer from AARP help us as a group of parents figure out how to structure activities for this particular group of young adults? And I think that is the genuine benefit of what you have to offer, and it's just not something people associate with AARP.
And one of the important things is we get to meet with our legislatures. We're not a political organization. One of the biggest things I do at tabling events is, oh, you're Republican, or you're, no. We are equally with both candidates as long as they support Social Security, Medicare for senior citizens.
And the big legislative issues.
And the big legislative. I'm
So-
part of the Capitol Strike Force, and that's what we do. We go out to the Hill and do that.
So when we come back from this break, we're going to talk a little bit more about everything that AARP does that you don't know about.
Green hat, red hat, oops. Red shirt, blue shirt, yellow shirt, oops. Yellow pants, red pants, green pants, oops.
Your son wants to get a cat,
I'll really take care of it.
but you're allergic. Do you A, prepare yourself, B, make the best of it,
C squared equals 25.
Good job!
or C, find a loophole? When it comes to parenting, there are no perfect answers, but that's okay, because you don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Teens in foster care will love you just the same.
Hey, you.
Yeah, you. Getting that college education, what are you gonna do? Graduate and take some office job? Be like everybody else?
Or will you dare do something different?
Like, be a teacher. You could be my teacher. You got the skills.
The smarts?
Yes, you. You could be the teacher I never forget.
That would be cool.
Does that corporate job even have recess? What are you gonna make of yourself?
What are you gonna make of me?
Welcome back to Your Need to Know. I'm your host, Catherine Reed. Today we are talking about volunteering with AARP, which might not be something a lot of people are familiar with, but I am learning today from Suba Sate and with Carol Downs about the many opportunities that you may not be aware of to engage with the public through AARP. So let's assume, Carol, that people are like, well, how do I get engaged, and what would the first steps be, and what does it look like?
Well, you probably already know somebody who's a volunteer for AARP, but they may never have told you how to get involved with them. AARP, as you know, is a national organization, but it has state, it's broken down into states.
Like chapters?
Like
a chapter?
I'd call it, rather than chapter, it's the structure.
Structure,
So
okay.
every state has a state director, and there's a website for that state, and you can go on the aarp.org website, and there'll be an area called volunteering, and you can just press on that, and then up will come the opportunities that are available for volunteering. I think one of the things that people recognize when they start to volunteer with AARP is that it's a fun job.
Sure.
I mean, you meet new people, and I think in aging, sometimes people tend to withdraw, and their friends may move away, they may not, their friends may be ill or whatever, and so meeting new people becomes a very important part of their job in terms of keeping going.
Well, it's that sense of community.
It's a sense of community. It's a sense that you're with other people who really want to make a difference in their community. I mean, they want to continue living their life with a purpose.
And I know, Suba, that you have said this because you do more volunteering work than just with AARP, but it is the sense of doing meaningful work.
Oh, absolutely. And I want to pick up something that Carol said. I want to have fun. Besides doing the serious stuff we do, I like to have fun. I just can't be serious all the time. So one thing is, along with Carol and other volunteers, we just have so much fun. And we're doing something purposeful. Like at a tabling event, we'll meet people, and you want to be jovial. Of course, we're dealing with serious issues like Social Security, Medicare. But as long as you have a smile, they'll approach your table. And that's what I like to do, even with my speakers. Start off with a friendly face, with a friendly smile. And that way, more people will be receptive to you. That's so important, what Carol said. It is fun. And that's why I choose to be an AARP volunteer. We just had a big push 2 weeks ago this Friday. We had volunteer onboarding or volunteer orientation at the Kingstown Library. 50-some people showed up.
Wow.
And out of that, we've got about half of those want to be volunteers.
That's extraordinary.
So Amber Sultani says that a lot of people will be getting us people where we meet them for coffee.
Right.
And we want to meet with them one-on-one and just see what their passion is and what they want to do with ARP.
That's a big turnout, 50 people.
It is, and the other part of that, I think, is that when you hear the term aging and an aging population, I think sometimes people leap to what used to be 40 to death.
Right, right.
But there are lots of different groups within an aging population.
Retirement can be a very long proposition.
It can be, and people in their 60s have different needs than they do in their 70s and their 80s. Some of our volunteers are in their 90s, and they're still going strong.
Yeah.
And you look at them as role models and say, holy mackerel, if that 92-year-old can do what she's doing, get up off the couch, Carol, and do something.
Absolutely. And and that comes back to finding the right fit for a person depending on where they are in their retirement, because it could be 4 decades worth of retirement. Literally, it could be.
Yeah.
My aunt she just turned 94, and for many years, up until very recently, she was a lay person in her church, and she went and gave communion on Sundays, and she did have to give up her driver's license eventually, because that is kind of part of this too.
Yeah.
But when you are in an active part of your retirement there, you have a lot of choices, it appears to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it is. And one of the things we have is volunteers that work part-time and still full-time.
Oh, wow.
So the only time they can volunteer is on a weekend event where they can come out to table. So yes, we have retirees, part-time people, full-time people. You talked about drivers. We do a driver safety course. That's very important.
See,
to
that really
our
is.
seniors,
Yeah.
and that AARP does. In fact, all our presentations are free. That's one thing I do want to let you know. All our
Okay.
presentations are free. We provide wonderful booklets and information, all done by AARP. So a bunch of people come to our presentations. Oh, is this going to cost? I said, no, ma'am, or sir, it doesn't cost you anything. Plus, we give away some freebies as well.
Nice.
But the only one that there is a cost is the driver safety, because it is a 1 day or sometimes a 2 day course, depending on the instructor. And there's a lot of material there. So, but you get a discount from your insurance company.
Oh, when you take it.
After you finish it.
Oh,
Yes.
look at that.
Most insurance companies offer the discount once you've taken the AARP driver safety
See,
course.
I had no idea.
Yeah. Well, and I think the other thing is that many people might not know is how diverse the volunteers are within AARP. And some of the materials are in many other languages. So you're tapping into the diversity of our country in terms of many of the volunteers. It's really a reflection of, again, how people want to do something meaningful as they age.
And getting people with different languages, you're right. It's a very Northern Virginia is a very multinational
Absolutely.
community, and finding people willing to volunteer in different languages would
Yeah.
be a boon, I am sure. But now, how do you reach them initially to tell them about the opportunities?
Well, as an example, AARP has been very involved in an annual multicultural event that I think is normally in the Fairfax area, but there are different tables that are representing various, I think, ethnic groups, and I think the combination of having a variety of ages within the volunteers for AARP and the variety of backgrounds and cultures they come from makes it a very exciting, and I think really reflects what is now our country.
Yes.
And so I'm happy that more people are getting to know about volunteering for AARP. And I think that's all to the good.
And that's one great thing Carol said was we've done tabling. I've done a tabling event at a mosque. I've gone to the Latino festival. There's a Korean festival.
Yeah.
So
Pakistani festival. There
Right.
are all kinds of
Oh,
festivals.
right.
Yeah.
But we try to go out there. Sometimes there's so many that there's just too many to go to. But if we find volunteers, we'll set up a tabling event there and let them know what we're about, because it does impact them. And one thing about fraud is I tell the people who are coming from other countries, they are a target.
Of course.
They're a target, and that's who they go after because they don't know all the rules. IRS imposters is one of the big ones.
It's huge,
It's huge.
jury duty, and there have been some that they publicize, but you don't know whether people are getting the news, however they get their news, that there's a new scam, and they
Right.
generally tend to be
Exactly.
telephone scams.
Exactly, and if they are a member of AARP, you can sign up for Fraud Watch, and you get alerts through your email from AARP that tells you what the latest is in your particular community. It might not be happening in Texas or somewhere else, but it could be happening here, and that's what we try to let them know
See,
about.
these are the details, the things that people I know I didn't know any of
Yeah.
this. And the thing about the driver safety course, that is so important. But what else are we missing here that we haven't already mentioned? Things that you do them regularly in the community.
I think one of the things is how closely we work with other organizations. I had mentioned earlier the Shepherd Center, and there are several in the Northern Virginia area, but I live in Alexandria, and one of the community organizations there that's been very big for a long time is Senior Services of Alexandria. So we work very closely with them. The villages, the village movement is now, it's just growing in the United States. So AARP works with various villages on events that they can work together on, or issues they can work together on. So I think it's expanding. It's expanding the volunteer base, for one thing, not only for AARP, but because AARP volunteers volunteer for other organizations.
Absolutely.
So it's kind of a ripple effect. I know, my husband's getting close to retiring now, and I keep saying, he'll say to me, don't you dare mention the word volunteer
I
to
know,
me.
right, yeah.
Because, he sees us out the door all the time.
Right.
But he knows how much I get out of it.
Yeah,
He
it
can
is
see
wonderful.
that.
But Alexandria is doing livable communities. One of our leaders for that is Jane King, a volunteer. And she's done an amazing job working with the community leaders there. Livable communities is not just for seniors, it's for a livable community where, say, for example, a red light might be too short for walking across the
If
street.
you had a disability, or you were
Disability?
pushing a stroller.
Pushing a
Exactly.
stroller.
Universal design. I keep trying to push this. If,
Yeah.
if it's
Exactly.
friendly to a stroller, it's friendly to a senior,
Right.
it's friendly to somebody
exactly
with a
right.
disability.
And that's what people think. Oh, they're getting old, blah, blah, blah. No, this applies to everybody along all ages, especially a mom
with a stroller. Like, you just don't realize it.
Exactly. So that's what Livable Communities is about, and it's been started in Alexandria. And we're hoping to branch that out to other locations, but of course, Fairfax is such a
Huge county. Yeah. It is, and so scalability then becomes
Right.
Yeah.
key here. It's
Right.
kind of like you've got good programs and you have volunteers, but how do you spread it out across a county of 1 million plus people?
And one thing I didn't know about, besides not volunteering for AARP, like Carol said, is partnering with other organizations. I didn't really know, and I had to learn this, that AARP is joins hands with other organizations, and I think that's wonderful because we're all working for the same common goal.
And so are there any other major events coming up that people should look out for?
Gosh, there's a,
I know there's a lot of tabling events
honestly,
in Weston.
I'll tell you how to find out.
Okay.
Because my mind has suddenly just gone totally blank. If you go to the AARP Virginia,
Okay.
aarp.org/Virginia,
Okay.
/Northern Virginia, events in Virginia. They'll come up a multitude of things going on in your area. And as you know, Northern Virginia has a plethora of things that one can do.
Absolutely, absolutely.
yeah.
And this is the important thing, is just to get people on the right path and show them how to find these things. And it sounds like we've done that, and we will have on our website how people can find these URLs. And so thank you both so much for being here.
You're very welcome. Thanks for having us.
And I hope we've inspired our viewers with the things you really need to know.